ACCA asks its members anywhere in the world to adhere to a single global code of ethical conduct, and we feel that's incredibly important.
Hello, I'm Magalie Laguerre-Wilkinson. Welcome to Ethics in Business in Their Own Words. To celebrate the 5th Annual Global Ethics Day in October 2018, ACCA, the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants, has teamed up with Carnegie Council and CFA Institute to produce this interview series. It features global business leaders exploring how businesses are preparing for an ethical future in the face of threats and challenges presented by globalization, technology, and human psychology. Today, we're talking to Helen Brand OBE, Chief Executive of ACCA. ACCA is the leading global body for professional accountants. It believes that accountancy is vital for economies to grow and prosper, and works all over the world to build the profession and make societies fairer and more transparent. Its 208,000 members are trained to think critically and strategically. They are leaders in the organizations they work in all over the world, helping them to grow and prosper in an ethical, responsible way. ACCA's reputation has made it the most sought-after qualification for aspiring professional accountants, with over 500,000 students currently studying an ACCA qualification in 179 countries around the world. And at the heart of that training lies ethics. What role does ACCA play in the community?
ACCA is the global body for professional accountants, and we're there to provide the professional accountants and expertise that ensure sustainable development of economies and businesses where our members work.
What is the code of ethics that accountants are signed up to?
The International Federation of Accountants produces an international code of ethics, and that's the one that ACCA has adopted and many other professional accountancy organisations across the world. And that is essentially the standards of conduct by which all accountants must abide and by which they're regulated. And therefore, if a member of the public makes a complaint about any professional accountant who's a member of a body such as ACCA, it will be investigated and, if necessary, disciplinary action taken. The public doesn't always know that. It's our job to make it known, but that accountability loop is driven by the code of ethics.
So you're basically the internal affairs or the police of accountants, right? Are you an accountant's nightmare?
No, accountants love being ethical. That's the point. It's only ever a very small percentage that move beyond the code of ethics or transgress the code of ethics. And I think that's the point about trust. The public needs to trust that people will, first of all, abide by that code of ethics, and on the rare occasion when they don't, that they will be held to account.
What are some philanthropic efforts the ACCA is undertaking?
ACCA's public value remit really means we're driving at that societal change and sustainable economic growth through the accountancy profession. So I don't always like to narrow things down to specific initiatives that we're having, because the organisation as a whole and all of our 200,000 plus members and 500,000 students should be driving towards adding value to the businesses, economies, societies where they work. That having been said, it's been fantastic to be very heavily involved in developing the accountancy profession in countries such as Afghanistan, Rwanda, Myanmar, where you can see there's a real need in rebuilding those economies and societies for the professionalism and ethics that professional accountants can bring.
You mentioned some of these countries. What are the trends that you're seeing?
Like all businesses and all sectors, digitisation or the increased use of technology in business is absolutely huge. So there's no aspect of work, be that your ethical conduct or the way you process, that isn't going to be impacted by that digital transformation that we're seeing. So that's a kind of given in everything we talk about now. But also increased governance and regulation, very much to the fore. So governments looking for better governance within businesses and organisations to be accountable to their stakeholders and to the wider public. And also, I think the environmental impacts, so how businesses are dealing with the environment and being held to account for that, also incredibly important. All of this, of course, backed up by ACCA's own research. We framed it Professional Accountants, the Future, and these trends came out very much to the fore.
How is ACCA managing its impact on the environment?
We can't manage what we don't measure. So this is where the accountancy profession really comes into its own in terms of helping businesses, organisations, governments to understand the real impact of their activity on the environment and therefore taking action on it. So we need common standards of measurements so we all understand the impacts that we're having. It's been great. We're going to be celebrating this year the Prince of Wales, Prince Charles's decade of accounting for sustainability, the integrated reporting movement led by the IIRC, the International Integrated Reporting Council. All of these movements are very much focused on getting the right measures to make sure we can manage our impact.
How does ACCA work to create diversity in the accounting industry?
First and foremost, to be diverse, you have to be inclusive. And that means creating the pathways to enter the profession in the first place. So since its very inception in 1904, ACCA has worked along values of diversity and inclusion, providing opportunity without artificial barriers. In other words, it doesn't matter your background, it doesn't matter your wealth, you should have access to that fantastic profession that can transform your life and transform the life of your family and your community. So since 1904, we've been working in that way. More recently, in 2015, we created a product called ACCA X, which was an accessible education platform free of charge for people to try out accountancy learning and to understand if they wanted to go further and become a full professional, or just to have that basic financial understanding that makes you better able to function in your home, in your society, in your workplace. The other way is through role models. We have members from so many countries around the world, well over 100 countries around the world, from many, many different backgrounds who are proud of the progress they've made through the profession. And talking about those role models, putting them on a platform and making sure they can communicate with the next generation is incredibly powerful.
Do you feel there are still challenges around gender equality in this profession?
Unfortunately, there still are many challenges, in spite of the number of entrants to the profession being largely 50-50 in terms of gender. When you look at the number of CFOs who are female in the Fortune 500, when you look at the number of partners in the major firms around the world, the percentages simply don't reflect that balance that we'd like to see within the workplace. So ACCA puts a lot of effort into researching this, to assisting our women members to progress further and make sure they're getting the right support and training, but also through our research and insights. And most recently, we did a piece of research showing that there is a 7-year handicap for women reaching the same executive level as men. And there's a myth grown up around this, that it's the failure of women to have the right confidence or to lean in their careers, to take the risk to reach that executive level. In fact, what we found was that women quite often are denied the same opportunities to take new assignments, to take those strategic roles, and to be sponsored by a mentor who will protect them from the politics in the workplace and allow them to progress. That's actually meaning it's a 7-year period that they're delayed reaching that executive level. So that's good in a way to discover that, because now we can take the practical steps that will allow women the same opportunities to progress as strategic leaders within the workplace.
And what are the practical steps?
Well, first of all, assigning those mentors and making sure that they're in place, making sure that when there are big opportunities, new projects, that there is an open and transparent way that people are appointed to lead those projects, and it's not simply a tap on the shoulder of the person you know best or whom is closest to you. It's that openness and transparency that will give women the equal opportunities to men in the workplace.
How is ACCA helping with the retraining of accountants to help them adapt to this technological age?
So ACCA has produced its 7 professional quotients for success. We've communicated that to all our members, and we've produced a diagnostic tool where they can assess their own gaps in knowledge, and then we direct them to learning and training and opportunities for enhancement to fill those gaps and ensure that they're equipped to be the professional accountants of the future. And that's at all stages of your career.
So last October, ACCA launched Ethics and Professional Skills module. What is this exactly?
So in 2007, ACCA produced its first ethics module. In 2017, we've revamped that in line with the entire qualification to become the Ethics and Professional Skills module, to put that ethical conduct within a broader professional framework and test comprehensively how somebody will react to challenging situations within the workplace. So this is an interactive module. It puts you in real life scenarios and you apply your knowledge of the workplace to those scenarios to say how you would behave. And there is no right or wrong answer here. This is one of the very important things about ethics. It's not something that can be taught line by line. It's not something you're going to learn page by page, but you're going to have to apply your professional judgment to those circumstances and reach an ethical conclusion. So it's a fantastic tool. We've developed it for professional accountants, but actually business people from many sectors are delighted with this, and we're hoping to be sharing that content with them over the coming years.
How have you seen ethical conduct evolve since you joined ACCA 10 years ago?
Since I became Chief Executive of ACCA 10 years ago, the focus on ethics has become much more intense, I feel. And that's because of the public expectation of business and of the profession. It's a very dynamic world we live in. Certainties that people used to have might no longer be there, be that economically, politically, the dynamics even within the family are changing. So knowing where the profession sits and how that ethical conduct is going to play across all of that dynamic is so important. And certainly at ACCA, year by year, we're ratcheting up that focus and also education and training for our members around ethical and professional conduct.
When you took the role as CEO, what was your biggest challenge?
When I became Chief Executive, my biggest challenge was to think, how are we going to stay relevant in this changing world, in a global changing world? So ACCA is a global player, it's a global organisation. We have so many interests and countries and members to deal with. So how do you stay relevant to those that you're serving? Ultimately, we're serving the public. It was a big challenge, but I think we've come a long way.
What is the greatest, because this is for Global Ethics Day, what is the greatest ethical challenge facing the ACCA and the accounting world in general?
I feel that the greatest challenge for the accountancy profession and ACCA is to maintain and establish where it's needed trust in the profession. We actually can't function as a profession without that trust. And yes, it's been under challenge from many directions, be that the economic changes we're seeing, having to behave ethically within the digital age that we're now in. It's a changing landscape, and yet we absolutely need to maintain that steadfast ethical core to the profession and trust from the public in order that the profession can function.
You talk about maintaining that steadfast ethical call. Is it a one-size-fits-all approach? Does it work differently in different countries? Can you sort of explain how ACCA might work that way?
ACCA asks its members anywhere in the world to adhere to a single global code of ethical conduct, and we feel that's incredibly important. So if you talk to an ACCA member in Afghanistan or in Beijing or here in London today, they will be pursuing the same ethical and professional conduct and, more importantly, be held to account for it. So being part of a professional body means you are held to account for your professional conduct. And I think that issue of public trust and confidence really relies on them knowing that that single standard is being applied.